When you have a graph of a function like this over here and asks you to find all of its parts, today we're going to show you what it looks like to do that. All right. In this question, it says, given the graph of f, which is this thing over here, we need to find the following. And so we're not only going to do this, but we have several other things we're going to find as well. Then this first section is asking us to find f of a certain number, okay? And normally when it says f of, it's usually f of x, all right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the x value that it gives us, right? If it's an ordered pair, it's x, y. We're gonna find the x value that it gives us, and we're gonna tell what the output or the y value is at that specific point. So that's all this question's asking. In this case, it says f of 0. So I'm gonna find my x value of 0, and the output there is 3, okay? Which makes the rest of these incredibly easy. F of 4, for example, is gonna also be 3. F of 10, its output is 0. F of 8 is a -2. F of 11 is 1. -3 is 0. 2, let's see, f of 2 is a 4. And the last one, f of -6, is right here, is a -3. Okay, so it says f of a certain value, you write its output or its y value, and that's going to be your answer. Let's try a few more. Okay, this next one says, decide if the following are positive or negative, again, given the same graph of our function f. All right, so it says f of 11, very similar to the last few that we did. And when it's at 11 here, that's the x value. The output is 1, or a positive one, right? We're deciding if it's positive or negative. So in this case, it's going to be a positive. I'll abbreviate. F of 0, so the input at 0 is, again, a +3. So that's positive. F of 8, let's see, the 8 is down here. So that's below my x-axis, so it's going to be a negative. Abbreviate negative there. And then last one, f of a -3. -3, it is 0, which is neither positive or negative. So we're going to say neither. Okay, so whether it's positive or negative, or the last one is neither. All right, our third type of problem says, for what values of x is f of x equal to 3? Okay, f of x is another way of saying y. So in other words, we're looking for when our output or a y value of that ordered pair is going to be a 3. So as I go along here, it's -3, -2, 0. Here's a 3, right? So one of the x values is going to be 0. What input or what x value gives us an output of 3? And one of those is going to be 0. And are there any others? Yeah, right here. I think this one is a 4. So the x values of 0 and 4 are going to work. There's no other y value that's a 3. So I think that's all for the 3. Same thing for a -2, just looking for those ones. In fact, the line y equals -2 is right here. So it's going to be when x is -5 and when x is 8. So when, for what values of x is f of x equal to -2? It'd be a -5 and, oops, a +8, not negative, and a +8. Okay, again, given our function over here in its graph, this time the question asks for what values of x is f of x less than 0? And the second question, for which values is it greater than 0? When you do problems like this, since we're looking again, when it says f of x, that means our y. We want to see, like, maybe when is it above the x-axis, that's going to be greater than, and if it's below the x-axis, that's going to be less than. And since there's multiple spots, we're going to have a range of values here. Okay, so let's look at this first one. It says, when is f of x less than 0? And I have this chunk right there, and then this chunk right here. And so there's kind of going to be two pieces or two intervals that will work for when f of x is less than 0. This first one's going to be from when remember it wants the x value. So it's going to be when my x's are from -6 until -3. This whole chunk right there, from -6 until -3. Now, the -6 is included in this because it is fully below the x-axis. So it's going to get a bracket. However, the -3 is on 0. And since that's not less than or equal to, it's not included. This one's going to get a parentheses. All right, the other chunk that's below the x-axis is over here. And this goes from when my x is 6 to when the x is 10. And since both of those are on my x-axis, those are not included because they are 0 at that point. So I'm going to say union with 6 to 10, but both those get parentheses because they're not included. All right, let's do the same thing down here. It says, for what values of x is f of x greater than 0? So I'm going to have this chunk as well as this little bit right there. And the same idea applies. So it's from when -3 to 6, -3 to 6, and those are both on the x-axis, so they are not included, where they get parentheses, union with and then it's above it right there as well from 10 to 11. From 10 to 11. The 10 is on the x-axis. The 11, though, is fully above the x-axis, so it's all positive. Therefore, the 11 is included. It gets a bracket. All right, our last step here with our function of f just tells us what's the domain and what's the range. It's asking for those two things. So remember, domain is our x values. And if I think of this as kind of one big long number line, it starts at my x value of -6, and it ends over here at the x value of 11. All right, so it's just going to be from -6 until 11. And if you look, these are all closed dots. There's none of those that are really open. So they're both going to get brackets because they are included in that domain. All right, same idea for the range. It's also going to be two brackets with two different numbers here. And range is our y value. So we go from the smallest to the largest, and y is from up to down, or down to up, I guess. And so our smallest y value, it looks like, is a -3, right? And then my highest one, or my largest one, is a 4 up here at the top of that graph. So from -3 to 4, both with brackets, would be the range of our function f.